Okay, welcome back, everybody, to the Divine Roots podcast. And looks like we're just checking audio here to make sure we've got everything sounding good. Give me 1 second. So we are good. Okay, let's start that again. We're going to double check our audio here. So welcome. We've taken a little hiatus from the Divine Roots podcast. Some interesting things have happened in the world and in my life. I had a baby.
Congratulations.
Yes. And what's interesting is I decided to pause when we had the baby, but now the baby's like a year and change. And it's interesting how that happens when you stop the momentum of something, and then it can be so hard to get it back going. So that's a reminder that at times when things feel hard to keep going, it's not like you can't pause, because sometimes it's best. And I think this time it actually was best, and we might talk about that later. But you should ask yourself in the moment, is fighting through right now harder than it will be to start again from scratch later?
It's like pushing a rock.
Yeah.
And then you have the momentum, and then you stop, and then you have to use all that power and might again to push it off the line.
Yeah.
So everything working out or doing anything like that, when we stop, it's always harder to get the momentum going again.
And, you know, I give this analogy. I love the analogy of the pushing the rock. I believe in that. I have this thought of it with anything in life, like you said, success. I think of a boulder. So it's a rock, but it's a huge rock. And I think life is that way. And when you start to push a boulder, nothing happens. And it's frustrating. And it feels like nothing's ever going to happen. And then maybe it wiggles one day. And then maybe you finally roll it over completely. And then what? You got to start over. And then you push. But before you know it, people start to notice, hey, that guy's pushing a boulder over there. He's making some progress. Hey, you want some help? Yeah, that'd be great. Come on over. And now you have 2 of you, 3 of you pushing the boulder, and it starts moving. And then before you know it, it starts to really move. And maybe you catch a downhill, and it's fun. But then I imagine, well, where are you going to take the boulder? Maybe you're going to take it here in Arizona. You're going to take it up north, because that's a beautiful place to take our boulder. So then you get going down the highway, and then what happens? You hit a hill. And it's like, whoa. And the boulder starts coming back at you, and that's the quitting. That's the stopping. It's like at that moment when it gets really hard, do you stop? Do you pause? Because what happens if you pause? It's going to roll right over you and go backwards all the way down. Or do you keep fighting, just like you did in the beginning for that very first push, and trust that more people, more energy is going to come and help you through that process? And then what do you get at the top of the hill? You get another downhill. You get more fun. You get exponential fun. But then, of course, at the end of that downhill, there's going to be another uphill, and that is life. So the key is to keep pushing.
Keep pushing with no expectations.
Yeah.
When we have expectations, we get disappointed. So pushing with no expectations is key.
I think that's a good segue, actually, for our topic today. So we wanted to backtrack a little bit here and kind of come back to the basics and start right with the essence of the ego. What is the ego? And I'm gonna key you up for this one.
Oh, Matt, there's so many different explanations, and everybody has their own way of explaining what the ego is.
I just realized I hadn't cut to you this whole time. I forgot I was editing.
Oh, no,
now we're on your face. He's so beautiful. Look at this, man.
Okay.
Cheat yourself this way.
Oh. like this.
Yeah, yeah. See, here's you right here. You want to be able
Oh,
to see you. There
I
you
see,
go.
I see. I got you. Now I see.
There you
Now
go.
I see. Okay.
He was
Sounds good.
blind and now he sees. All right.
Yes.
So we're going back to this idea of the ego.
Correct.
So cue us up here.
So there's different types of explanations. Different type of people explain it in their own way. My understanding of the ego is, I look at it as a computer. You got a software and a hardware, right?
Okay.
The software part is the ego that runs the hardware. Okay.
All right.
Now the ego, unfortunately, the ego nowadays is so active in us that the ego is responsible for our survival. That's one of the
So if we
things.
backtrack, is the hardware, is that your body?
Yes.
And so unlike the hardware technology we're living in today, we don't get to go out and buy a new one.
No. No.
And much like our old iPhone 7, it's going to just deteriorate and deteriorate and deteriorate, right?
If we allow our ego, so the ego holds all the fears, it holds all the pain, it holds everything, right? It's a program of getting away from pain and going to pleasure. And survival is key. So it's super active on survival. So for the ego, let's say.
So for the definition of ego, is ego negative?
No.
It just is something to be defined, right? Because I think societally, the word ego has become a negative term. Like, oh, that guy's got a big ego or whatever, right?
Yeah, no. The ego is necessary. The ego is necessary to function and to navigate in this reality, in this world. But what happened over time, the ego took over. So let's say we have the divine essence within us that was getting smaller and smaller with time because the ego was getting bigger and bigger. So survival, everybody wanted nicer cars, bigger homes. All these things start to take over. And we stop paying attention to the essence within. So that essence was smaller and smaller. Okay? So, that's okay. Here we go. So, in my view,
Your ego didn't worry about the fact that this was cutting across your
No.
neck, but my ego of trying to produce a really great show
yeah, you,
was worried about the fact that you look like you're choking over there.
as long as I don't turn blue, I'm okay. That's the key. Yeah, that's it. So the problem is today, people allow their ego to get too powerful and allow the ego to make all the choices for them. So they unfortunately make the choices in lives based on past traumas, fears, and avoiding certain scenarios. And unfortunately, they repeat the same thing over and over again, same scenarios in their life, attracting same people. And in order to move on a spiral, we have to constantly, what they called before in the ancient times, death of the ego, slowly. You need it on certain percentage, but not 90% of your life is run by ego.
So now, when you talk about certain people, are you talking about most of the world right now, or are you talking about the small elitist evil cabal people that we all hear about or whatever? Like is this an epidemic that's happening, or are you sort of discussing like little moments in people's lives or certain people in particular?
You're talking about the active ego part?
Yeah, like when you say it gets out of control and it's
yeah.
90%, is that all of us sometimes, or is that certain people?
Certain extent, all of us. Some of us on a lower scale and some of us on a bigger scale. Of course, people that are power hungry, people think that they could control certain other people. They need more money and power for survival. That's all ego. Okay? So we have to be compassionate towards those type of people because they do have a good side as well. All these negative Kabbalists, as people say, or the what other name was there? The elites,
Yeah.
right? All these guys. Yeah, they it's just I look at them with compassion. Why? Because the ego took over their consciousness completely. So I don't judge them. I say one day they'll grow. One day they'll get to that level where they start uh, slowly dying. That part of their ego starts to shed, and they'll see what's right and wrong. It just takes time.
And would you say that it's probably a really healthy attitude not to be either enamored with them, jealous of them, or fearful of them, of these elitist or whatever this energy is that we hear about or like we think is there or something. It is there, but like you said, compassion, to bring that to the table, compassion and love. It's because what's interesting is you wouldn't want to trade shoes. I mean, nobody wants to be taken over all the way by ego, because it's actually not a wonderful way to live, right?
This is the issue. We all look externally. The ego constantly wants you to look external, constantly wants you to be out from your inner world, wants you to pay attention to what this game of life that's going on constantly has to offer. So they constantly create certain situations where you are off your center and looking out. So that's right. The ego is like fearing, like you said, fearing certain groups or judging certain groups. It's all competition. It's all, so if we take the word competition and compassion, look how close they are, but so different. So compassion is actually when we look within ourselves, find that compassion within ourselves, loving and finding that relationship with our essence, divine essence within. And then we actually start looking, when we look outwards, all these things that are happening right now in the world become neutralized. Once the individuals start taking responsibility for themselves and becoming more compassionate towards themselves and people around them and act out of love, all these other scenarios get neutralized. All these other powerful, they think, Kabbalists and world leaders or leaders that are trying to run the world, as people say, they get no more energetic power from you. They don't get that energy to feed. And they slowly, when they don't get that energy, guess what happens to them? They slowly start to shrink. And eventually they go away.
Yeah.
That's the whole purpose. When we start to research, when we start to buy into their story, when we start to watch them and believe in them, we feed our power. We give away our power and our energy to them, and that's what they want.
Okay, so this is actually something that I'm curious to hear your opinion on, which is I would 100% agree with you that that's what we're doing. We're giving them our power. So then my question becomes, what's the difference between not giving them our power, not engaging, and just being blind and allowing yourself to just be walked all over and not standing up or not, being willing to speak out against injustice or something? Like, what's the difference? So I'll give you a scenario that from history. Let's say there's oppression happening. And now, in hindsight, 100 years later, we can all say, wow, that was terrible, and why didn't anyone stand up? How come people didn't fight back? I would have fought back. Well, no, you wouldn't have. I don't know, or maybe you would have. Who knows? But the question becomes, it's easy from hindsight, but when you're living in it, the question is, what's the difference? Like where do you draw the line between I'm giving over my energy and I'm actually fueling them and empowering them, or I'm completely disengaged and therefore allowing them to just do what they do free form?
let's go back a little bit. Why are there? Why are they there in the first place? They are a mirror of our inner world as a collective humanity, because we are in such chaos within, because we are so lost within. We actually created them, projected them from our own collective inner beings. We project these scenarios to wake us up. So all these unfortunately horrible people that in history that killed other people and all that uh, horrible stuff that happened in human history, we are the ones that created them. How? Because we are in chaos within us humanity. Our relationship with ourselves, our own self, our relationship with ourselves is in chaos. We are completely lost. We are in pain. Most of us are constantly depressed or anxious. What type of, if we are like that within, what type of external world we're going to create? So our responsibility, slowly to start healing ourselves. And once we start healing ourselves, all these other external factors will start to die off, will start to diminish. And those things, those scenarios that we're going through now will start losing fuel. And the key is what we call mental noise. Unfortunately, the mental noise, when our thoughts are out of control and our fantasies and all that, we are creators. We are actually the creators of our own reality. So when we have these situations, that means that's what's within us. We are actually creating those situations, those people, those scenarios. We allow them to exist because we feed them unconsciously. That's the ego part, feeds them unconsciously. Because the other part of ours, the divine part, is there but dormant. Because we're not working that specific, let's call it muscle. We don't work it. We constantly living in an external world in this game instead of going within, fixing ourselves within, trying to be complete so we don't depend on nobody for our happiness.
Mm.
And when we
That way, no matter what happens, we are okay because we're only depending upon our own connection to source.
Correct. And I'm not saying no, everybody gets upset. Oh, my wife, my kids, and my loved ones. Your relationship with them will just improve, get stronger when you actually know yourself. And when you start understanding and not feeding these horrible, let's call them negative entities that are actually destructive, because we have those entities within us that are destroying us slowly without us even knowing, because the ego puts such a veil in front of us. Does that make any sense?
It does, yeah. So I'm going to bring this right into the forefront, and I'm gonna go buck wild here on our podcast live, and I'm going to bring up something that's happening right now, which I know is dangerous. So I'm going to do it anyway. He's like, oh no. All right. So there are stories right now that a government is, well, I'll just say what here's what I've heard, but here's the thing. I'm not there, right? So I didn't see it, but there are now numerous sources that say that the Chinese Communist Party has committed genocide against a people called the Uyghurs. Have you heard this?
No.
Okay. So the question becomes, when anybody speaks out on it, they get canceled automatically. They get sort of thrown off of all of their, whatever they've got going on. So the question, the moral question for me is, if that's true, should we not want to speak up about it so that people know, so that something could be done about it? Or are we better to go internal and pretend it's not happening and just leave these people to fend for themselves, and hopefully they go internal, and before they die, they're at least at peace with source?
Let's look at it this way. Look at the lion, powerful lion, and the lion is sick and internally dying, okay?
The line?
Lion, no, a lion, an animal.
Oh, a lion.
Lion,
Yeah.
Lion, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
A lion, yeah.
This is the Russian.
The Russian accent.
Yeah.
So, and it's a powerful animal that is sick,
Yeah.
okay? And it doesn't know it's sick, but it's sick. And it's trying to get the prey, but it can't. Doesn't have the energy, that just can't do it. Slowly dying. And when our house is not in order, and that's every human being on this planet, 99% of human beings are not in order within. And we're actually paying attention to the external, saying, oh, listen, this is going wrong, this is going wrong, this guy is killing people, that guy is killing people. But you're slowly dying yourself within. We're all dying within, slowly. We have no chance if we do not start to really shake ourselves up, start understanding our thoughts, understanding what's happening within ourselves. How can we change the world or move somebody in a certain direction when each human being is, first of all, everybody is a follower, not a leader, no individuality whatsoever, because they're lost, so blind is leading the blind. And then we have the people that create problems, and then the people from the sidelines look at those problems, they want to fix them, but they can't because they're also led by, unfortunately, by the blind. And it's a action, reaction, and everybody's walking in circles. That's why for thousands of years, the only thing that's improving is technology. But on a bigger scale, inner humanity is evolving so slowly because nobody's paying attention in the inner world, what's really happening. But there's a storm, and we constantly project that storm out, and that's why humanity is repeating history constantly. If you read history, it's the same thing over and over and over again. So my view on things is a little bit different, and I say, why each individual start taking responsibility first, lowering their mental noise, lowering their inner chaos. When that happens, everything around them starts to improve. Every cell, think of a human being as a cell. So we start to improve our own cells, and the whole body starts to heal slowly. And all these other people that are causing this type of extreme chaos in the world, they're going to start slowly losing their power. But right now, by us giving our attention to that stuff so far away, and we have our own inner chaos war within, at home, either with themselves or with their wives or with their kids. So many kids are committing suicide. You know, that's tragedy. Without these leaders that are killing their people, that's in the normal households, people that have food, people that have beautiful homes, the kids commit suicide. That's tragedy.
Of course. And you're right, and those things are happening at as large of an extent, if not larger, than some of these other horrific stories that we've heard throughout history. What you just said really resonated with me, and so I'm gonna try to rewrap it in some of my language because I've really been fighting with this, and because I've been fighting with it, I just assume other people might have been fighting with it as well. And my personality is curiosity. If there's a better way, I do want to know about it. And up until now, I haven't been able to wrap my mind around the the idea of letting go of certain things because my moral compass was telling me that it's not okay to not stand up for another person, so to speak. But what hit me just now, what you said, that relates to some of the teachings that I do, is I have a saying that goes, when you change, the people around you change, or the people around you change. And so you think to yourself, well, if I just quiet myself down, if I just settle, and if I don't give energy, what good's that going to do? Really? I'm just going to ignore it? You know, that's the negative way of looking at that scenario. But if you say, if I'm going to bring myself down to peace, down to quiet, down to a place where I'm going internal and really looking at me, something profound is going to happen to my immediate circle. They're going to be affected by that new energy. And my immediate circle may be 5 people, 10 people, 20 people, 100 people. And as their temperature lowers, the people around them will lower. And if you're doing it, and I'm doing it, and someone out in Colorado's doing it, and someone over in Russia is doing it because they're listening to this podcast, and they lower the temperature, before you know it, that could have the effect we're hoping to have by wanting to speak up. Am I getting that right?
Correct. And you said something that I want to touch base on. You said, it's hard for me not to fight for somebody that can fight for themselves, or somebody that needs my help, right? You said that?
Yeah.
But what about you? Do you fight for you? Do you fight for your essence? But your ego wants you to think there's a war out there externally. Go save this person.
Yeah.
But what about you? The first person that needs saving is us first. If you're drowning, how can you help somebody else that's drowning too?
Right.
So first, we need to get ourselves out of the water.
It's like this. Ready? I like this. This is great. I know I'm the type of person that if I saw 3 guys beating up somebody, and let's assume they're not, you know, some sort of terrible person who hurt their kids or something. Let's just say they're doing it out of evil. 3 people are beating up one. I believe I'm the type of person that's going to jump in. But here's the question. Have I trained? Can I walk in there and disarm them without killing anybody, without putting myself in prison, without me getting killed? Am I ready for that battle? And that's, I think, what you're saying is we need to go down. We need to go internal. We have to actually build our spiritual strength and fight from there. Because if we jump in now as we're weak, what's going to happen is we're going to just get lost in the sauce in there and just become another person in the noise.
It's just you're wasting your energy for no reason, basically. That's right. And you don't have the power to create change because of it, because you're drowning. You're wasting all your energy just for survival internally. But the ego says, no, put your attention there, right there. Don't look at within. It's scary to look within. It's scary to go save yourself. It's selfish. What do you mean it's selfish? First, we have to fix ourselves, get ourselves strong, get ourselves, understand who we are, why we're here, love ourselves. And then every relationship gets better. First, it starts with your wife, your kids, and everybody else. Your parents is completely different relationship. But what happens, like we talked about, they create scenarios. The news stations wants warning, watch this, watch that, constantly. That's the ego, constantly activating the ego for you to drown. Continue to drown and be helpless, and you cannot help yourself, and you just go with the flow of the game. What I'm saying is get your power back and start becoming an individual and start becoming a leader, not a follower, and create your beautiful life for yourself that you want.
All right, I love this. So we're going to start winding this podcast down now, and being who I am, I've trained myself to be a teacher. I love to teach, but I want to know and internalize it first. I think I've internalized this message today through curiosity. So now what I'd like to do is do a quick transition, and I want to discuss what are some takeaways and what are some ways that if someone's listening to this and they're relating to me and relating to this idea of, yeah, maybe I am a part of the noise right now, but I don't know how to, like, what are the steps? Are there steps? Are there things that we can start to notice and perhaps do that can help us to cool down our temperatures a bit and perhaps have a profound impact on the people around us? What do you got for us?
The first thing, the mind, the racing thoughts, and for us to become more aware of that and understand our thoughts, understand how we feel, constantly be aware of what you're feeling, how you're feeling, what you're saying, why you're saying it, the temperature in the room, let's say. Constantly be present. Don't allow the mind to wander. Go back constantly into the past, judging your performance. That's all ego. Going to the future, fearing the future. What's going to happen? Nobody knows.
Right.
That's the ego trying to fantasize and make scenarios, put you in a fearful mode for your, not enough food, not enough money, not enough this, constantly causing you to become off your center. So the key is, first off, breathing exercises, relax, do a meditation, do a prayer, center yourself, whatever your background is, connect to that specific source, your powerhouse. Go within as much as you can. Stop watching the news. That's very important. Stop watching things that are not uplifting, because they create more noise within you subconsciously. They feed the entities within you, the programs, the negative programs, and they grow. So we want to starve them. We want to get our power back. And we need to get stronger and stronger. And then after you get strong enough, it becomes easy. And then you start, while you're walking down the street, you change people's moods and
beautiful. I love that. Right. And if people are looking for a meditation or some more insight on some of that, you have some resources available, correct, at your website? What's your website?
The website is wisdominyou.com.
Wisdominyou.com. Wisdominyou.com. And I know there's some great meditation there. There's one that I know our family uses quite a bit to relax and get centered. And that's where we're going to start to get a lot of this information up, is going to be right there at wisdominyou.com. And we're here live on the Deering Acting Studio podcast. My name's Matthew Deering. I'm here with Paul. Paul, say your last name.
It's Yakubov.
Thank you. I'm not
just for fun.
I'm not gonna try that.
It was a pleasure
yes.
to be in your presence again and feeling all the people that are going to listen to this. I just want to send them love and give them a push in the right direction. Hopefully they heard us and they're gonna do whatever they feel is right for them.
Yeah, good.